The over-adapted survivor. The silent collapse of those who learned to endure everything, but never learned how to feel safe. There's a version of you that nobody ever really met, not fully, because the version the world sees is the one that survived, the one who figured things out early, who didn't break down when things got hard, who stayed calm when chaos was normal. You became the person people rely on, the one who has it together, the one who can handle it. But there's something strange about that, isn't there? Because the more capable you became, the less anyone noticed how much it cost you. And now, you've reached a point where nothing is technically wrong. Your life might even look stable from the outside. But inside, there's a quiet exhaustion you can't explain. You're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You feel disconnected, even in moments that should feel meaningful. And the hardest part? You don't even know how to ask for help. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that needing help wasn't safe. So, you adapted. You stopped expecting. You stopped relying. You stopped feeling too deeply. And it worked. It protected you. But now, that same adaptation is the thing keeping you stuck. Because the skills that helped you survive are the same ones preventing you from feeling alive. To understand this pattern, we have to look beyond behavior and into adaptation. When someone has gone through too much, their psyche doesn't simply endure, it reorganizes. It rewires itself around survival. One of the most common mechanisms is hypervigilance. This is when your nervous system becomes finely tuned to threat. You read tone shifts instantly. You notice micro-expressions. You anticipate problems before they happen. It's not anxiety in the traditional sense. It's conditioning. Your brain learned, if I stay alert, I stay safe. But the cost is that your body never fully powers down. Even in silence, there's tension. Even in peace, there's scanning. Then there's parentification. This happens when a child is forced into adult roles, emotionally or practically. You become the stabilizer, the emotional container, the one who absorbs stress so others don't have to. But here's the problem. When you grow up being needed, you don't learn how to have needs. Your identity becomes built around usefulness. And without realizing it, you begin to equate love with responsibility. Then we have avoidant attachment. At its core, it's not about avoiding people. It's about avoiding dependence. Because dependence once meant vulnerability. And vulnerability once led to disappointment or pain or abandonment. So now, even when you want closeness, something in you resists it. You pull back, you detach, you intellectualize instead of feeling. And beneath all of this is something even deeper.
A nervous system that has normalized stress. The brain's default mode network, responsible for self-referential thinking, becomes overactive. You replay conversations. You analyze everything. You live in a constant loop of reflection and anticipation. Not because you're broken, but because your mind is trying to maintain control in a world that once felt uncontrollable. This is not dysfunction. This is intelligence under pressure. But survival is not the same as living. And this is where the invisible cost begins to surface. Because when you spend years adapting to instability, you don't just lose safety, you lose spontaneity. You lose softness. You lose the ability to exist without calculation. There's a grief here that's difficult to articulate. A grief not for a single event, but for an entire emotional landscape that never got to form. You learned to be composed instead of expressive, capable instead of curious, resilient instead of relaxed. And over time, this becomes your identity. Not because it's who you are, but because it's who you had to be. There's a quiet loneliness in this, because people admire your strength, but they don't see your fragility. They trust your independence, but they don't realize it was built out of necessity. And so you move through life with a subtle contradiction. You are surrounded, but not fully known. You are appreciated, but not deeply understood. You're functioning, but not fully alive. The philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But for you, imagination was never separate from reality. It was preparation. It was survival. And Carl Jung warned us that what remains unconscious will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. Your patterns, your distance, your constant self-reliance, they are not fate. They are echoes. Echoes of a time when you had to hold everything together. But here's the truth. You are no longer there. And yet, your body still believes you are.
You might equate rest with laziness. Slowing down feels wrong. Your worth is tied to productivity, to endurance, to output. You might suppress your own needs. You minimize your struggles. You tell yourself others have it worse. You invalidate your own pain before anyone else can. You might feel a persistent sense of emptiness or disconnection. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a quiet absence of something you can't name. These are not random flaws. They are learned responses. They are what happens when a human being adapts too well to an environment that required too much. And here's the difficult part. Letting go of these patterns can feel like losing control, like stepping into uncertainty, because for so long, control was the only thing that kept you safe. But unlearning is not about losing control. It's about updating your reality. It's about recognizing that the conditions have changed, even if your internal world hasn't caught up yet. Healing for you is not about becoming stronger. You've already mastered strength. Healing is about learning something far more difficult. Safety. Not external safety, but internal safety. The ability to exist without constantly bracing for impact. This begins with small, intentional shifts. Inner child work, not as a concept, but as a relationship. There's a version of you that never got to rest, never got to be held, never got to feel safe without earning it. Healing means turning toward that part of yourself, not with judgment, but with presence. Shadow work. There are emotions you've suppressed to function. Anger, grief, even longing. These aren't weaknesses. They are unprocessed truths. To heal, you don't eliminate them. You integrate them. Nervous system regulation. Your body has been in survival mode for years. It needs to relearn calm. Through stillness, through breath, through safe, repeated experiences of not being in danger. And most importantly, you practice something unfamiliar, letting yourself be supported. Not all at once, not perfectly, but gradually. You let people show up for you without immediately preparing for disappointment. You allow care without questioning its motive. You sit in moments of peace without searching for what might go wrong. This will feel unnatural because for most of your life, peace was temporary. But now, it doesn't have to be. There's a quote that captures this transformation. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You don't have to carry everything anymore. You don't have to prove your worth through suffering. You don't have to survive when you are finally allowed to live. And slowly, with patience, with awareness, you begin to experience something new. Not intensity, not chaos, but something quieter, something unfamiliar, something steady, peace. Because in the end, the goal is not to be fixed, but to become whole. If this spoke to something inside you, share it with someone who might feel the same. And if you're ready to stop surviving and start living, stay. You're not alone anymore.